Caitlin with Legacy Title Agency, and today we're breaking down buyer vesting, also called tenancy. When you purchase a property in Michigan, your name or names will be written on the deed. If more than one person will be holding title together, the way your name appears on that deed affects your ownership, your rights, and your responsibilities. This relationship between the owners is called tenancy, and it determines what happens to your interest in the property if you sell, if you transfer, or if you pass away. So we have four main types of tenancy here in Michigan. We have tenants in common, we have joint tenants with full rights of survivorship, we have joint tenancy, and then lastly, we have tenants by the entirety. So first thing we have is tenants in common. That is the default. So if you don't specify how you want to take title, you will take title as joint tenants. So what does that mean for us? There's a few different things that each of these types of tenancies have. The first one is when we're taking title as tenants in common, if one of you passes away, that tenant's interest actually goes to their estate or their heirs, and it would need to be probated. And so what that means is someone is going to have to open up a probate estate, and they would have to determine your personal representative, and they would have to convey that property. The second thing we want to look at is the ownership. So is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? With tenants in common, you get to pick. You can choose whether or not all of the tenants want to own the same amount, or if one is going to have more than the other. So the last characteristics of tenants in common is the way that any one tenant can convey the property to someone else. If one of those tenants in common sells their interest to another party or gives their interest to another party, that additional person takes also as a tenant in common, and all of these same rules apply. So with tenants in common, when we pass away, our property is going to go to our estate and our heirs. We can own it in equal or unequal shares. And then when we deed it to someone else, they also take as tenants in common. So this brings us to our second type of tenancy, and that is joint tenancy with full rights of survivorship. So this one is a little bit different. This is not the default. So what does that mean? That means that if you want to take title as joint tenants with full rights of survivorship, you have to specify it on the deed. So if Bob and Carol are taking title together, they have to take title as Bob and Carol as joint tenants with full rights of survivorship. So let's look at those characteristics that we talked about with the last type of tenancy, tenants in common. So here with joint tenants with full rights of survivorship, if one party passes away, we don't have to worry about probate. It actually goes to the surviving owners automatically. If you've got Bob and Carol in title and Carol passes away, now just Bob owns it. No need to go to probate or anything like that. Now, one of the other differences is you don't get to pick how much each joint tenant owns. You can't choose 60-40, 70-30, 50-50. As joint tenants with full rights of survivorship, they each own an equal portion of the whole. So that is a pretty big difference. And if one party decides to deed their piece to someone else, they get something a little bit different. They actually get a life estate measured by that co-tenant's life who deeded the property out. So joint tenancy is our third type of tenancy, and it's going to look almost exactly like joint tenants with full rights of survivorship, meaning if someone passes away, it automatically goes to the other joint tenants. There's no need for probate. You can't have unequal ownership. They both own the whole property. But that third piece, what happens if they want to deed out, that is going to look differently. With joint tenants, what's going to happen if one of those tenants deeds out, they're deeding out as a tenant in common. So they change that relationship with the new person that they've brought into title. So joint tenants and joint tenants with full rights of survivorship is very similar. Really, the biggest difference is if one co-tenant wants to deed out alone. That's where you'll see those differences. So our fourth type of tenancy and our last type of tenancy for today is tenancy by the entireties. So this one actually is the default if the people taking title are a married couple. But you do have to state that on the deed. It would have to state to Bob and Carol as husband and wife, and then they would take as tenants by the entireties. Now, fun side note, if you are a husband and wife and you want to take title together, you absolutely can choose another type of tenancy. You just have to note that on the deed, because the default for a married couple is tenants by the entireties. So you would just have to specify if you wanted to take title a different way. Now, the other parts of tenancy by the entireties are very similar, again, to joint tenants and joint tenants with full rights of survivorship, being that if you take title as tenants by the entireties, you both own the whole thing. You can't separate it out 50% to one partner, 50% to the other, or 70-30, 60-40, nothing like that. But one other thing about tenancy by the entireties is you actually can't give one share from one tenant to someone else. Both spouses must be joined together in order to sell that property. They can't sell half or anything like that. One other added benefit is it also gives special protections against some creditors. A quick heads up though, this isn't legal or financial advice. If you have specific questions or you want to connect, feel free to email ytorders@legacyclosings.com. Long story short, your choice of vesting has big legal implications. We recommend talking with your attorney before deciding if you're unsure which option is best for you. At Legacy Title Agency, we're here to guide you through every step of your closing, making sure your deed is correctly prepared. Have questions about how you should take title in Michigan? Reach out to us today.